Today is the 27th of August 2010, and this is the 39th time we are talking on the Majjhima Nikāya Suttas. Now we come to Sutta 96, Esukari Sutta to Esukari. That's how I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then the Brahmin, Esukari, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. And this courteous and amiable talk was finished. He sat down at one side and said, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe 4 levels of service. They prescribe the level of service towards a Brahmin, the level of service towards a noble, the level of service towards a merchant, and the level of service towards a worker. Therein, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a Brahmin. A Brahmin may serve a Brahmin, a noble may serve a Brahmin, a merchant may serve a Brahmin, and a worker may serve a Brahmin. That is the level of service towards a Brahmin that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a noble. A noble may serve a noble, a merchant may serve a noble, and a worker may serve a noble. That is the level of service towards a noble that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a merchant. A merchant may serve a merchant, and a worker may serve a merchant. That is the level of service towards a merchant that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a worker. Only a worker may serve a worker. For who else could serve a worker? That is the level of service towards a worker that the Brahmins prescribe. What does Master Gotama say about this? Stop here for a moment. So you can see from here, the Brahmins consider themselves as the highest caste. Everybody else can serve a Brahmin. But the noble, everybody can serve a noble except the Brahmin. They think they are higher caste. It's not proper for them to serve a noble or warrior clan person. And then the merchant comes after that. The Brahmins and the nobles should not serve a merchant. A merchant can be served by a merchant or a worker. And the worker is the lowest caste. Only a worker should serve a worker. And the Buddha said, well, Brahmin, has all the world authorized the Brahmins to prescribe these 4 levels of service? No, Master Gotama. Suppose Brahmin, they were to force a cut of meat upon a poor, penniless, destitute man and tell him, good man, you must eat this meat and pay for it. So too, without the consent of those other recluses and Brahmins, the Brahmins nevertheless prescribe these 4 levels of service. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is telling him, only the Brahmins say this, nobody else says this. Forcing your view on everybody else. And the Buddha said, I do not say, Brahmin, that all are to be served, nor do I say that none are to be served. For if, when serving someone, one becomes worse and not better because of that service, then I say that he should not be served. And if, when serving someone, one becomes better and not worse because of that service, then I say that he should be served. If they were to ask a noble thus, which of these should you serve? One in whose service you become worse and not better when serving him, or one in whose service you become better and not worse when serving him? Answering rightly, a noble would answer thus, I should not serve the one in whose service I become worse and not better when serving him. I should serve the one in whose service I become better and not worse when serving him. Similarly, if they were to ask a Brahmin, a merchant, a worker, answering rightly, they would answer thus, I should not serve the one in whose service I become worse and not better when serving him. I should serve the one in whose service I become better and not worse when serving him. I'll stop here for a moment. So, to give an example, for example, if they were to serve somebody who does not give them any salary, then they become worse for it. But if they serve somebody who gives them a big fat salary, then they become better for it. Then they should serve the one who gives them a good salary. That's in the worldly sense. I do not say, Brahmin, that one is better because one is from an aristocratic family. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is from an aristocratic family. I do not say that one is better because one is of great beauty. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is of great beauty. I do not say that one is better because one is of great wealth. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is of great wealth. For here, Brahmin, one from an aristocratic family may kill living beings, take what is not given, misconduct himself in sensual pleasures, speak falsely, speak maliciously, speak harshly, gossip, be covetous, have a mind of ill will, and hold wrong view. Therefore, I do not say that one is better because one is from an aristocratic family, but also Brahmin. One from an aristocratic family may abstain from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, from misconduct in sensual pleasures, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, and from gossip. And he may be uncovetous, have a mind without ill will, and hold right view. Therefore, I do not say that one is worse because one is from an aristocratic family. Here, Brahmin, one of great beauty or one of great wealth may kill living beings, take what is not given, misconduct himself in sensual pleasures, etc. Therefore, I do not say that one is better because one is of great beauty or of great wealth, but also Brahmin, one of great beauty or of great wealth, may abstain from killing living beings, abstain from taking what is not given, abstain from misconduct in sensual pleasures, etc. Therefore, I do not say that one is worse because one is of great beauty or of great wealth. Stop here for a moment. So here, the Buddha is trying to say, it is not because one is from a noble family or one is of great beauty or one is of great wealth that one is better for it. It is one's actions. If one conducts oneself rightly by doing wholesome karma, the 10 wholesome karmas, then one is better for it. But if one misconducts oneself by doing wrong actions, then one is worse for it. I do not say, Brahmin, that all are to be served, nor do I say that none are to be served. For if, when serving someone, one's faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom increase in his service, then I say that he should be served. Stop here for a moment. You see these 5 things, faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom. If you remember, formerly we saw in the suttas, some previous sutta, that the Buddha says, if you want to repay our parents' kindness, we should teach them 4 things. To have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, to practice virtue or moral conduct, to practice generosity and not be selfish, and to gain wisdom by learning the Dhamma. Because if we teach our parents these 4 things, then they'll have a good rebirth if they practice these 4 things. But here, the Buddha has added one more, learning, much learning of the Dhamma, having much knowledge of the Dhamma. So these 5 things are very beneficial because they bring us to a good rebirth. So if you serve someone and you attain these 4 things, then you should serve that someone. For example, if you serve a teacher and the teacher teaches you these 5 things, then it's worth serving the teacher. When this was said, the Brahmin Esukari said to the Blessed One, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe 4 types of wealth. They prescribe the wealth of a Brahmin, the wealth of a noble, the wealth of a merchant, and the wealth of a worker. Therein, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the wealth of a Brahmin. wandering for alms. A Brahmin who spurns his own wealth, wandering for alms, abuses his duty like a guard who takes what has not been given. That is the wealth of a Brahmin which the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the wealth of a noble, the bow and quiver. A noble who spurns his own wealth, the bow and quiver, abuses his duty like a guard who takes what has not been given. This is the wealth of a noble which the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the wealth of a merchant, farming and cattle breeding. A merchant who spurns his own wealth, farming and cattle breeding, abuses his duty like a guard who takes what has not been given. That is the wealth of a merchant which the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the wealth of a worker, the sickle and carrying pole. A worker who spurns his own wealth, the sickle and carrying pole, abuses his duty like a guard who takes what has not been given. That is the wealth of a worker which the Brahmins prescribe. What does Master Gotama say about this? Well, Brahmin, has all the world authorized the Brahmins to prescribe these 4 types of wealth? No, Master Gotama. Suppose, Brahmin, they were to force a cut of meat upon a poor, penniless, destitute man and tell him, good man, you must eat this meat and pay for it. So too, without the consent of those other recluses and Brahmins, the Brahmins nevertheless prescribe these 4 types of wealth. I, Brahmin, declare the noble supramundane Dhamma as a person's own wealth. By recollecting his ancient maternal and paternal family lineage, he is reckoned according to wherever he is reborn. If he is reborn in a clan of nobles, he is reckoned as a noble. If he is reborn in a clan of Brahmins, he is reckoned as a Brahmin. If he is reborn in a clan of merchants, he is reckoned as a merchant. If he is reborn in a clan of workers, he is reckoned as a worker. Just as fire is reckoned by the particular condition dependent on which it burns. When fire burns dependent on logs, it is reckoned as a log fire. When fire burns dependent on faggots, it is reckoned as a faggot fire. When fire burns dependent on grass, it is reckoned as a grass fire. When fire burns dependent on cow dung, it is reckoned as a cow dung fire. So too, Brahmin, I declare the noble supramundane Dhamma as a person's own wealth. By recollecting his ancient maternal and paternal lineage, he is reckoned according to wherever he is born. Stop here for a moment. So this Brahmin, they like to classify people according to the caste. If you are a Brahmin, born as a Brahmin, you should wander for alms. If you are born in a noble family, you should earn your livelihood by the bow and quiver, the soldier. And then if you're a merchant, you should do farming and cattle breeding. If you're a worker, you should take the sickle to work and the carrying pole. But the Buddha says that a person's wealth should be the noble or Aryan supramundane Dhamma. So the Dhamma is the best wealth that we can have, like the Aryan Dhamma. So we should acquire this wealth now that we have come across the Dhamma. And this is the knowledge of the Dhamma. We can bring it along when we go for rebirth. And it will help us many, many lifetimes. If Brahmin, anyone from a clan of nobles, goes forth from the home life into homelessness, and after encountering the Dhamma Vinaya proclaimed by the Tathagata, he abstains from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, from incelibacy, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, and from gossip, and is uncovetous, has a mind of without ill will, and holds right view. He is one who is accomplishing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. If Brahmin, anyone from a clan of Brahmins goes forth, or from a clan of merchants, or from a clan of workers goes forth, from the home life into homelessness, and after encountering the Dhamma Vinaya proclaimed by the Tathagata, he abstains from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, etc. He is one who is accomplishing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. What do you think, Brahmin? Is only a Brahmin capable of developing a mind of loving kindness towards a certain region, without hostility and without ill will, and not a noble or a merchant or a worker. No, Master Gotama, whether it be a noble or Brahmin or a merchant or a worker, those of all four castes are capable of developing a mind of loving kindness towards a certain region, without hostility and without ill will. So too Brahmin, if anyone from a clan of nobles goes forth, or from a clan of Brahmins or merchants or workers, and after encountering the Dhamma Vinaya, abstains from killing, from taking what is not given, etc., he is one who is accomplishing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. Now stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, it doesn't matter what caste the person is from, if he renounces and practices the holy life, then he is practicing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. And then the Buddha asked this Brahmin, is only a Brahmin capable of meditating on metta, loving kindness, and radiating loving kindness? So he says no. Any person from any caste can meditate and radiate metta. So the Buddha says in the same way, anybody from any clan can practice the holy life. What do you think, Brahmin? Is only a Brahmin capable of taking a loofah and bark powder, going to the river and washing off dust and dirt, and not a noble or a merchant or a worker? No, Master Gotama, whether it be a noble, a Brahmin or merchant or worker, those of all four castes are capable of taking a loofah and bark powder, going to the river and washing off dust and dirt. So too, Brahmin, if anyone from the clan of nobles goes forth, or Brahmin or merchant clan or worker clan, and abstains from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, etc., then he is accomplishing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. What do you think, Brahmin? Suppose a head anointed noble king were to assemble here 100 men of different birth. And here the Buddha quotes Sutta 93, where the Buddha says, these 100 men of different castes, and they take different types of wood and start a fire. Is the fire different because they are from different clans? And he says, no, all of them, the fire is the same, doesn't matter what caste that person is from. So the Buddha says, in the same way, if anyone from a clan of nobles or Brahmins or merchants or workers go forth and practices the holy life, he is one who is accomplishing the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. And this was said, the Brahmin Esukari said to the Blessed One, magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Then he took refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower. Let's go on to him for refuge for life. That's the end of the sutta. So this is another sutta where this Brahmin, they come and tell the Buddha what the Brahmins believe, the Brahmin standard, but the Buddha shows him it's not logical. Okay, we come to the next sutta, 97, Dhananjani Sutta. This sutta is quite interesting. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Now on that occasion the Venerable Sariputta was wandering in the southern hills with a large sangha of monks. Then a certain monk who had spent the rains at Rajagaha went to the Venerable Sariputta in the southern hills and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side, and the Venerable Sariputta asked him, is the Blessed One well and strong, friend? The Blessed One is well and strong, friend. Is the sangha of monks well and strong, friend? The sangha of monks too is well and strong, friend. Friend, there is a Brahmin named Dhananjani living in Rajagaha at the Tandula Pala gate. Is that Brahmin Dhananjani well and strong? That Brahmin Dhananjani too is well and strong, friend. Is he diligent, friend? How could he be diligent, friend? He plunders Brahmin householders in the name of the king and he plunders the king in the name of the Brahmin householders. His wife, who had faith and came from a clan with faith, has died, and he has taken another wife, a woman without faith, who comes from a clan without faith. This is bad news that we hear, friend. It is bad news indeed to hear that the Brahmin Dhananjani has become negligent. Perhaps sometime or other we might meet the Brahmin Dhananjani and have some conversation with him. Then, having stayed in the southern hills as long as he chose, Venerable Sariputta set out to wander towards Rajagaha. Wandering by stages, he eventually arrived at Rajagaha, and there he lived in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta is asking this monk who had just come from Rajagaha about the Buddha, the Sangha, and then his old friend, Dhananjani. Dhananjani is supposed to be his old friend. And this Brahmin Dhananjani had a wife who followed the Buddhist religion, but that wife passed away. So after the wife passed away, he took another wife who follows the external sect religions. And because the wife followed the external sect religion, he also probably came to follow the wife's religion and was not keeping the precepts. So the Venerable Sariputta was disappointed to hear that this monk says he plunders Brahmins in the name of the king, and he plunders the king in the name of the Brahmins. Then when it was morning, the Venerable Sariputta dressed and taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Rajagaha for alms. Now at that time, the Brahmin Dhananjani was having his cows milked in a cowshed outside the city. So when the Venerable Sariputta had wandered for alms in Rajagaha and had returned from his alms round, after his meal, he went to the Brahmin Dhananjani. The Brahmin Dhananjani saw the Venerable Sariputta coming in the distance, and he went to him and said, "Drink some of this fresh milk, Master Sariputta, until it is time for the meal." "Enough, Brahmin. I have finished my meal for today. I shall be at the root of that tree for the day's abiding. You may come there." "Yes, sir," he replied. Stop here for a moment. This part is quite interesting. I think a lot of people don't notice it. This Dhananjani, being an old friend of Venerable Sariputta and formerly being a follower of the Buddha, he should know, be quite aware of the monks' rules about the monks eating one meal a day. During the Buddha's times, the monks were eating one meal a day. And so you notice here, he wants to offer the main meal to Venerable Sariputta, but he's offering Venerable Sariputta some fresh milk before the meal. This is very interesting because the Buddha's disciples, they don't take food except at the main meal. So here it would appear like fresh milk is not considered food in that sense. In the monks' Vinaya, soft food is to be taken only once. But later, of course, the Buddha relaxed and said that after taking that meal, if there's some left over, they can take it again as long as it's not past noon. So here, milk is not considered normal food because nowadays there's a lot of fuss about milk. That monks cannot drink milk in the evening, but other products of milk are allowed. For example, butter, cheese, ghee. Cheese is in the Thai tradition, and then ghee is allowed. So it's very strange that milk is not allowed. From here, and also from another incident in the Vinaya, it would appear that perhaps during the Buddha's time, the monks did take milk in the evening, because in the Vinaya books, there is it is mentioned there's this rich man, Mendaka. The Buddha came to a certain part of the country and was wandering with a large sangha of monks. And because of the Buddha's reputation, and the Buddha ate one meal a day, all the days for the Buddha's lunch dana were already booked by people. Many people have already made appointments to provide food for the Buddha. So this rich man, Mendaka, he did not get a chance to offer food to the Buddha and the Sangha. So what he did was, since there were 1,250 arahants, he called his workers, being a rich man, to get 1,250 milk cows and follow the Buddha. So the fact that he took these cows to follow the Buddha and the Sangha shows that probably he wants to provide milk the whole day and night. So perhaps during the Buddha's time they did take milk. Also this is another case where they are offering milk before the main meal. Okay, this is just a point I wanted to make. And then after he had eaten his morning meal, the Brahmin Dhananjani went to the Venerable Sariputta and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side, and the Venerable Sariputta asked him, "Are you diligent, Dhananjani?" And he said, "How can we be diligent, Master Sariputta, when we have to support our parents, our wife and children, and our slaves, servants and workers, when we have to do our duty towards our friends and companions, towards our kinsmen and relatives, towards our guests, towards our departed ancestors, towards the deities, and towards the king, and when this body must also be refreshed and nourished?" Let's stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta is asking him whether he is diligent in the Dhamma, probably meaning that whether he is practicing dana, sila, learning the Dhamma, and memorizing the Dhamma, and all that. So he said, how can he be diligent in the Dhamma when he has to support so many people? This is a typical excuse that some people give. They have to do all kinds of duty. There you see what Venerable Sariputta says. What do you think, Dhananjani? Suppose someone here were to behave contrary to the Dhamma, to behave unrighteously for the sake of his parents, and then because of such behavior, the wardens of hell were to drag him off to hell. Would he be able to free himself by pleading thus, "It was for the sake of my parents that I behave contrary to the Dhamma, that I behave unrighteously, so let not the wardens of hell drag me off to hell"? Or would his parents be able to free him by pleading thus, "It was for our sake that he behaved contrary to the Dhamma, that he behaved unrighteously, so let not the wardens of hell drag him off to hell"? No, Master Sariputta, even while he was crying out, the wardens of hell would fling him into hell. What do you think, Dhananjani? Suppose someone here were to behave contrary to the Dhamma, to behave unrighteously for the sake of his wife and children, or for the sake of his slaves, servants and workers, or for the sake of his friends and companions, or for the sake of his kinsmen and relatives, or for the sake of his guests, or for the sake of his departed ancestors, or for the sake of deities, or for the sake of the king, or for the sake of refreshing and nourishing his body, and because of such behavior the wardens of hell were to drag him off to hell? Would he be able to free himself by pleading thus, "It was for the sake of wife and children, slaves, servants, etc., that I behave contrary to the Dhamma, that I behave unrighteously, so let not the wardens of hell drag me off to hell"? Or would others be able to free him by pleading thus, "It was for the sake of refreshing it was for the sake of his relatives and friends, etc., that he behaved contrary to the Dhamma, that he behaved unrighteously, so let not the wardens of hell drag him off to hell"? No, Master Sariputta, even while he was crying out, the wardens of hell would fling him into hell. Let's stop here for a moment. So here you notice, what is mentioned here is interesting, that if a person's karma is such that he is to be reborn in hell, the wardens of hell would come up and drag him down to hell. This is one of the few places where they mention this in the suttas. That's why in the Chinese tradition we have this Gu Tao Bear Bin, Nao Tao Ma Min, these hell beings coming to drag somebody down to hell, drag his soul down to hell. So this is one thing I like to mention, which is interesting in the Buddhist tradition. The other thing is, if a person conducts himself not according to Dhamma, that means he breaks the precepts, and he does it for the sake of his parents, or for his family, or for his relatives, or for his friends and servants and workers and all that. This King Yama in hell is not going to excuse him. He will still be dragged down to hell. So we cannot give the excuse that we have to work and earn a livelihood for our relatives, that we cannot practice the precepts. What do you think, Dhananjani? Who is the better? One who, for the sake of his parents, behaves contrary to the Dhamma, behaves unrighteously, or one who, for the sake of his parents, behaves according to the Dhamma, behaves righteously? Master Sariputta, the one who, for the sake of his parents, behaves contrary to the Dhamma, behaves unrighteously, is not the better. The one who, for the sake of his parents, behaves according to the Dhamma, behaves righteously, is the better. Stop here for a moment. So, for the sake of your parents, a person should behave according to the Dhamma. When a person behaves according to the Dhamma, he is the one who benefits, and also his parents also will benefit. But if he behaves contrary to the Dhamma, then he will have to suffer for it, and his parents also are not going to benefit from it. If he suffers, his parents also won't be happy. Dhananjani, there are other kinds of work, profitable and in accordance with the Dhamma, by means of which one can support one's parents, and at the same time both avoid doing evil and practice merit. This sentence is very important. Sometimes some people do certain types of livelihood, and they give some excuse, like rearing pigs to support the family, and to sell the pigs or chicken, fowl to be slaughtered. This is one of the trades or business that the Buddha says a lay person should not do. There are 5 kinds of trade the Buddha said a lay person should not do. One is to buy and sell human beings, slavery. Nowadays is still practiced illegally. Another one is to buy and sell liquor or any intoxicant like drugs and all that. Another one is to trade in weapons that kill. Another one is to trade in insecticide and herbicides that kill a lot of insects and worms, etc. And the 5th one is not to rear animals for sale to be slaughtered. For example, rearing cattle, or rearing pigs, rearing chickens and ducks and all that, which you sell to the market to be slaughtered. So if a person does all these types of trade, in the end, when he is dragged off to hell, he cannot give the excuse that it is because of his parents or for his relatives or his family, etc. What do you think, Dhananjani? Who is the better? One who, for the sake of his wife and children, for the sake of his slaves, servants and workers, or for the sake of his friends and companions, or for the sake of his kinsmen and relatives, or for the sake of his guests, or for the sake of his departed ancestors, or for the sake of deities, or for the sake of the king, or for the sake of refreshing and nourishing his body, behaves contrary to the Dhamma, behaves unrighteously, or one who, for the sake of all his relatives, etc., and himself, behaves according to the Dhamma, behaves righteously. Master Sariputta, the one who, for the sake of his relatives and friends, etc., behaves contrary to the Dhamma, behaves unrighteously, is not the better. The one who, for the sake of his relatives and family and etc., behaves according to the Dhamma, behaves righteously, is the better. Dhananjani, there are other kinds of work, profitable and in accordance with the Dhamma, by means of which one can refresh and nourish this body, and at the same time both avoid doing evil and practice merit. This sentence is very important now, because not only reading in all these things, but a lot of work sometimes people do is not good for them, but they think it's necessary. It's not like here Venerable Sariputta says it's not really necessary, because there are so many other types of work which is profitable and in accordance with the Dhamma. But the problem is sometimes some people they want to find the easy way. If you just I can give some simple example. For example, if a woman prostitutes herself just because she can, it's easy work and can get a lot of money. In the end, she's going to suffer for it. Or if a person sells drugs or any of these illegal professions, they make big money, and it's easy to make big money. But at the end of their life, which is so short, they will have to suffer for it. Then the Brahmin Dhananjani, having delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Sariputta's words, rose from his seat and departed. On a later occasion, the Brahmin Dhananjani became afflicted, suffering and gravely ill. Then he told a man, "Come, good man, go to the Blessed One, pay homage in my name with your head at his feet and say, Venerable Sir, the Brahmin Dhananjani is afflicted, suffering and gravely ill. He pays homage with his head at the Blessed One's feet. Then go to the Venerable Sariputta, pay homage in my name with your head at his feet and say, Venerable Sir, the Brahmin Dhananjani is afflicted, suffering and gravely ill. He pays homage with his head at the Venerable Sariputta's feet. Then say thus, it would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Venerable Sariputta would come to the house of the Brahmin Dhananjani out of compassion." Stop here for a moment. So you see, after a short while, even if it's a few years, it's still a short while, this person suddenly is on the deathbed already. "Yes, Venerable Sir," the man replied. And he went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to the Blessed One, he sat down at one side and delivered his message. Then he went to the Venerable Sariputta, and after paying homage to the Venerable Sariputta, he delivered his message, saying, "It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Venerable Sariputta would come to the residence of the Brahmin Dhananjani out of compassion." The Venerable Sariputta consented in silence. Then the Venerable Sariputta dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, he went to the residence of the Brahmin Dhananjani, sat down on a seat made ready, and said to the Brahmin Dhananjani, "I hope you are getting well, Brahmin. I hope you are comfortable. I hope your painful feelings are subsiding and not increasing, and that their subsiding, not their increase, is apparent." And Dhananjani said, "Master Sariputta, I am not getting well. I am not comfortable. My painful feelings are increasing, not subsiding. Their increase and not their subsiding is apparent. Just as if a strong man was splitting my head open with a sharp sword, so too violent winds cut through my head. I am not getting well. Just as if a strong man were tightening a tough leather strap around my head as a headband, so too there are violent pains in my head. I am not getting well. Just as if a skilled butcher or his apprentice were to carve up an ox's belly with a sharp butcher's knife, so too violent winds are carving up my belly. I am not getting well. Just as if two strong men were to seize a weaker man by both arms and roast him over a pit of hot coals, so too there is a violent burning in my body. I am not getting well. I am not comfortable. My painful feelings are increasing, not subsiding. The increase and not their subsiding is apparent." A lot of people in life are like that. They don't expect that death will come so soon. And suddenly, when they are at the end of life, experiencing all these uncomfortable feelings, and then they become scared because they don't have enough good karma. They have a lot of bad karma. What do you think, Dhananjani? Which is better, hell or the animal realm? The animal realm, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the animal realm or the realm of ghosts? The realm of ghosts, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the realm of ghosts or the realm of human beings? Human beings, Master Sariputta. Which is better, human beings or the gods of the heaven of the four great kings? The gods of the heaven of the four great kings, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the gods of the heaven of the four great kings or the gods of the heaven of the 33? The gods of the heaven of the 33, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the gods of the heaven of the 33 or the Yama gods? The Yama gods, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the Yama gods or the gods of the Tusita heaven? The gods of the Tusita heaven, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the gods of the Tusita heaven or the gods who delight in creating? The gods who delight in creating, Master Sariputta. Which is better, the gods who delight in creating or the gods who wield power over others' creations? The gods who wield power over others' creations, Master Sariputta. What do you think, Dhananjani? Which is better, the gods who wield power over others' creations or the Brahma world? Master Sariputta said the Brahma world. Master Sariputta said the Brahma world. Then the Venerable Sariputta thought, these Brahmins are devoted to the Brahma world. Suppose I show the Brahmin Dhananjani the path to the company of Brahma. And he said, Dhananjani, I shall show you the path to the company of Brahma. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, sir, he replied. The Venerable Sariputta said, what is the path to the company of Brahma? Here, Dhananjani, a monk abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness, metta. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth quarter. So above, below, around and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. This is the path to the company of Brahma. Again, Dhananjani, a monk abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, with joy, with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth quarter. So above, below, around and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. This too is the path to the company of Brahma. Then Master Sariputta, pay homage in my name with your head at the Blessed One's feet and say, Venerable Sir, the Brahmin Dhananjani is afflicted, suffering and gravely ill. He pays homage with his head at the Blessed One's feet. Then the Venerable Sariputta, having established the Brahmin Dhananjani in the inferior Brahma world, rose from his seat and departed, while there was still more to be done. Soon after the Venerable Sariputta had left, the Brahmin Dhananjani died and reappeared in the Brahma world. Then the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, Monks, Sariputta, having established the Brahmin Dhananjani in the inferior Brahma world, rose from his seat and departed, while there was still more to be done. Then the Venerable Sariputta went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and said, Venerable Sir, the Brahmin Dhananjani is afflicted, suffering and gravely ill. He pays homage with his head at the Blessed One's feet. Sariputta, having established the Brahmin Dhananjani in the inferior Brahma world, why did you rise from your seat and leave while there was still more to be done? Venerable Sir, I thought thus, these Brahmins are devoted to the Brahma world. Suppose I show the Brahmin Dhananjani the path to the company of Brahma. Sariputta, the Brahmin Dhananjani has died and has reappeared in the Brahma world. That's the end of the sutta. So you can see from here that probably the earlier part, after Venerable Sariputta came to advise this Dhananjani to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, he must have listened to Venerable Sariputta's words. And also he probably had meditated. So this last moment when Venerable Sariputta told him to practice this radiation of loving kindness and compassion, joy and equanimity, he did, and he was able to do it. So that's why he was reborn in the Brahma world. But what did the Buddha mean by saying that there was still more to be done? Instead of this helping this Dhananjani to be reborn in the Brahma world, probably Venerable Sariputta should have taught him the Dhamma. If he had taught him the Dhamma and he understood the Dhamma, then he would have attained stream entry. If he had attained stream entry, become an Arya, then he will never be reborn in the woeful plains. Probably that's what the Buddha meant. But he was reborn in the Brahma world. If he's not Arya, there's a possibility later that he will come down and even be reborn in the woeful planes. Whereas if a person becomes an Arya, then you are secure, you'll never be reborn in the woeful planes. And also, the number of lifetimes you have left is limited. You'll enter Nibbana soon. So this sutta is interesting for a lot of lay people. Don't give the excuse that because of the family, because of having to look after the parents and all that, that you cannot keep the precepts. You have to keep the precepts. You cannot give any excuse if you don't keep the precepts. Because in the end, we will have to pay for our unwholesome karma with much suffering. And this suffering is not a short time, If you are born in the woeful plains, it's a very, very long time of suffering. Even the lowest, even you are born as a ghost, you'll be there and suffer terribly, because every night it's a torture. Every night is a torture for ghosts, going out, looking for food, nothing to eat, except all the corpses and all the undesirable things. Okay, we go to the next sutta, 98, Vasettha Sutta, to Vasettha. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Icha Nangala, in the wood near Icha Nangala. Now on that occasion a number of well-known, well-to-do Brahmins were staying at Icha Nangala, that is, the Brahmin Chanki, the Brahmin Taruka, the Brahmin Pokarasati, the Brahmin Janusoni, the Brahmin Todeya, and other well-known, well-to-do Brahmins. Then while the Brahmin students, Vasettha and Bharadvaja, were walking and wandering for exercise, this discussion arose between them. How is one a Brahmana? The Brahmin student Bharadvaja said, when one is well born on both sides of pure maternal and paternal descent, 7 generations back, unassailable and impeccable in respect of birth, then one is a Brahmana. The Brahmin student Vasettha said, when one is virtuous and fulfills the observances, then one is a Brahmana. Stop here for a moment. Here, the word Brahmana is translated as a Brahmin. As I mentioned before, this word Brahmana has 2 meanings. One is the Brahmin clan. The Pali word is Brahmana. The other one, because originally the Brahmins were the priest caste, ascetics, holy men. So another meaning of Brahmana is holy men. So here, these 2 students are arguing. One says, because of birth, that one is a Brahmana, in the sense of being holy. The other student says, no, it's actions that make one a holy man. But the Brahmin student Bharadvaja could not convince the Brahmin student Vasettha, nor could the Brahmin student Vasettha convince the Brahmin student Bharadvaja. Then the Brahmin student Vasettha addressed the Brahmin student Bharadvaja, Sir, the recluse Gautama, the son of the Sakyans, who went forth from a Sakyan clan, is living at Icha Nangala, in the wood near Icha Nangala. Now a good report of Master Gautama has been spread to this effect. That Blessed One is Arahant, Sama Sambuddha, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened, blessed. Come, Bharadvaja, let us go to the recluse Gautama and ask him about this matter. As he answers, so we will remember it. Yes, sir, the Brahmin student Bharadvaja replied. Then the 2 Brahmin students, Vasettha and Bharadvaja, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, they sat down at one side, and the Brahmin student, Vasettha, addressed the Blessed One in stanzas thus. We are both acknowledged to possess the knowledge we claim of the triple Veda. For I am Pokarasati's pupil, and he a pupil of Taruka. We have attained full mastery over all that the Vedic experts teach. Skilled in philology and grammar, we match our teachers in discussion. A dispute has arisen between us, Gautama, concerning the question of birth and class. Bharadvaja says one is a Brahmana by birth, while I hold one is a Brahmana by action. Know this, O seer, as our debate. Since neither of us could convince the other, or make him see his point of view, we have come to ask you, sir, rightly famed to be a Buddha, As people turn with palms upraised towards the moon when it reaches fullness, so in the world do they venerate you and pay homage to you, Gautama. So now we ask of you, Gautama, the I uprisen in the world, is one a Brahmana by birth or action? Explain to us who do not know how we should recognize a Brahmana. And the Buddha said, I will explain to you as they really are, Vasettha, said the Blessed One. The generic divisions of living beings, for many are the kinds of birth. Know first the grass and trees, though they lack self-awareness, their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. Next come the moths and butterflies, and so on through as far as ants. Their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. Then know the kinds of quadrupeds, of various sorts, both small and large. Their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. Know those whose bellies are their feet, to wit, the long back class of snakes. Their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. Know too the water-dwelling fish that pasture in the liquid world. Their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. Next know the birds that wing their way as they range in open skies. Their birth is their distinctive mark, for many are the kinds of birth. While in these birds, the differences of birth make their distinctive mark, with humans, no differences of birth make a distinctive mark in them, nor in the hairs, nor in the head, nor in the ears, nor in the eyes, nor in the mouth, nor in the nose, nor in the lips, nor in the brows, nor in the shoulders or the neck, nor in the belly or the back, nor in the buttocks or the breast, nor in the anus or genitals, nor in the hands, nor in the feet, nor in the fingers or the nails, nor in the knees, nor in the thighs, nor in the color or in voice. Here birth makes no distinctive mark, as with the other kinds of birth. In human bodies in themselves, nothing distinctive can be found. Distinction among human beings is purely verbal designation. Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, unlike animals, animals are in many different classes, like birds and fish and all that, very different. But in human beings, the Buddha says, human beings are generally all the same. You cannot differentiate them like animals. Who makes his living among men by agriculture, you should know, is called a farmer, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Who makes his living among men by varied crafts, you should know, is called a craftsman, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Who makes his living among men by merchandise, you should know, is called a merchant, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana or holy man. Who makes his living among men by serving others, you should know, is called a servant, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Who makes his living among men by stealing, you should know, is called a robber, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Who makes his living among men by archery, you should know, is called a soldier, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Who makes his living among men by priestly craft, you should know, is called a chaplain, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Whoever governs among men, the town and realm, you should know, is called a ruler, Vasettha. He is not a Brahmana. Stop here for a moment. So you see, those who make their living by the priestly craft, just because they wear the robe or look like a priest, they are not a holy man. Here the Buddha calls him a chaplain. So it is inside that determines, not the outside. I call him not a Brahmana because of his origin and lineage. If impediments still lurk in him, he is just one who says, Sir, who is unimpeded and clings no more. He is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has cut off all fetters and is no more by anguish shaken. Who has overcome all ties, detached. He is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has cut each strap and thong, the reins and bridle band as well, whose shaft is lifted, the awakened one, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who endures without a trace of hate, abuse, violence and bondage too, with strength of patience well arrayed. He is the one I call a Brahmana. Who does not flare up with anger, dutiful, virtuous and humble, subdued, bearing his final body, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Stop here for a moment. So here you see, a holy man, if you abuse him, you're violent towards him, he endures it without hatred, does not flare up with anger, humble. Who, like the rain on lotus leaves or mustard seed on the point of an awl, clings not at all to sensual pleasures, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who knows right here within himself the destruction of all suffering, with burden lowered and detached, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who with deep understanding, wise, can tell the path from the not path, and has attained the goal supreme, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Aloof alike from householders and those gone into homelessness, who wanders without home or wish, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Stop here for a moment. That means he's aloof from householders and also aloof from other monks. Who has laid aside the rod against all beings, frail or bold, who does not kill or have them killed, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who is unopposed among opponents, peaceful among those given to violence, who does not cling among those who cling, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has dropped all lust and hate, dropped conceit and contempt, like mustard seed on the point of an awl, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who utters speech free from harshness, full of meaning, ever truthful, which does not damage anyone, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who in the world will never take what is not given, long or short, small or big, or fair or foul, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has no more inner yearnings regarding this world and the next, who lives unyearning and detached, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has no more indulgences, no more perplexity, since he knows, through having reached the deathless sphere, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who, by transcending all ties here, about both merit and evil deeds, is sorrowless, stainless and pure, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who, pure as the spotless moon, is clear and limpid, and in whom delight and being have been destroyed, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has passed beyond the swamp, the mire, samsara, all delusion, who has crossed to the further shore and meditates within the jhanas, is unperturbed and unperplexed, attain nibbana through no clinging, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Stop here for a moment. So here you see, meditates within the jhanas. Every time in the suttas, when the Buddha talks about meditation, it is always to do with the jhanas, not vipassana meditation, which was created later. Who has abandoned sensual pleasures and wanders here in homelessness, with sense desires and being destroyed, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has abandoned craving too, and wanders here in homelessness, with craving and being both destroyed, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who leaves behind all human bonds, and has cast off the bonds of heaven, detached from all bonds everywhere, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who leaves behind delight and discontent, who is cool and without attachment, the hero who has transcended the whole world, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who knows how beings pass away to reappear in many a mode, and clutching he, sublime, awake, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Whose destination is unknown to gods, to spirits and to men, and Arahant with taints destroyed, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who has no impediments at all, before, behind or in the middle, who is unimpeded and clings no more, he is the one I call a Brahmana. The herd's leader, perfected hero, the great seer whose victory is won, unperturbed, cleansed, awakened, he is the one I call a Brahmana. Who knows his manifold past lives and sees the heavens and states of woe, who has reached the destruction of birth, he is the one I call a Brahmana. For name and clan are assigned as mere designations in the world, originating in conventions. They are assigned here and there. For those who do not know this fact, wrong views have long underlain their hearts. Not knowing, they declare to us, one is a Brahmana by birth. One is not a Brahmana by birth, nor by birth a non-Brahmana. By action, one is a Brahmana. By action, one is a non-Brahmana. For men are farmers by the axe, and by the axe are craftsmen too. And men are merchants by the axe, and by the axe are servants too. And men are robbers by the axe, and by the axe are soldiers too. And men are chaplains by the axe, and by the axe are rulers too. So that is how the truly wise see action as it really is. Seers of dependent origination, skilled in action and its results. Action makes the world go round. Action makes this generation turn. Living beings are bound by action, like the chariot wheel by the pin. Asceticism, the holy life, self-control and inner training. By this one becomes a Brahmana. In this supreme Brahmanahood lies. One possessing the triple knowledge, peaceful, with being all destroyed. Know him thus, O Vasettha, as Brahma and Sakha for those who understand. When this was said, the Brahmin students, Vasettha and Bharadvaja, said to the Blessed One, Magnificent Master Gotama, Magnificent Master Gotama, and they took refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. From today, let Master Gotama remember us as lay followers who have gone to him for refuge for life. It's the end of the sutta. So here, another two Brahmins were converted by the Buddha. We end here. Anything to discuss? Yes.
It seems to me that Brahmins, they only accepted the good teachings and they say they are only they follow. So that anyone that anyone, any Brahmana, any Brahmana teaching can go over to this.
Yeah, if they say they take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, that means they have become Buddhists already? Or monk, yes, there are many. If we look into the this Samyutta Nikāya, there are many, and also Anguttara Nikāya. There are many. After they listen to what the Buddha says, then they ask to be ordained under the Buddha. I think we already read some where the Buddha said normally they have to undergo this probationary period of 4 months. And then some of them they say, oh, if 4 months is needed, I'm willing to be on probation for 4 years. Right? So they became monks.
Another
Say again.
There's another line of Buddhism. They do put down
Oh yes. In the Mahayana Suttas, they like to put down Venerable Sariputta for the reason that when Devadatta caused a schism and left the Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana to go and spread the word that whatever Devadatta does, nothing to do with the Buddha. That means he's no more a disciple of the Buddha. So they went around saying this to all the lay people. So those in this Devadatta's Sangha, the monks, they hated Sariputta for that. And also because Sariputta does not have psychic power, so they are less afraid of him. They are more afraid of somebody like Moggallana who can read their minds and have psychic power. Also, Venerable Sariputta is the most respected disciple of the Buddha. So he represents the Arahants. He's foremost in wisdom, you see. So these Mahayanis, they wanted to put down Arahants. So they single him out as like a typical Arahant. They make fun of him having no psychic power. In, for example, the Vimalakirti Sutra. So there are a few reasons like this for putting down Venerable Sariputta.
Could you clarify this one? On page 605, there's a problem in number 51. So that generation is unknown. To God is generous in the man. And Arahant, the pain is strong. He is the one who calls the mind. Arahant, he calls the mind.
Yes. Brahmana, just now I meant in the sense of a holy man. I told you there are two meanings to Brahmana. One is a Brahmin caste, the other one is a holy man. Here we are talking about the holy man. The Arahant is a holy man. And his destination is unknown because when he passes away, his consciousness stops. You cannot locate where his consciousness has gone. So it's unknown where he has gone. Even to gods, gods also don't know where he has gone. Yes. $300. Oh yes. It was on page 762. Okay, shall we end here?